You know, we all have a lot of data, and it has to positively, absolutely stay safe. It can't get into the wrong hands, and the biggest challenge we have is how to transfer it from here to there. We all know as leaders that legacy tools that transfer our important files and sensitive data are mostly outdated and fall short on security, especially with the demands of today's remote workforce. Relying on outdated technology puts our organization's brand at risk, and that is unacceptable. So we are excited to invite you to step into the future of completely secured managed file transfer from our friends at Kiteworks. Kiteworks is absolutely, positively the most secure managed file platform on the market today. They've been FedRAMP moderate authorized by the Department of Defense since 2017. And unlike traditional legacy systems with limited functionality, Kiteworks has unmatched software security with ongoing bounty programs and regular pen testing to minimize vulnerabilities. And the coolest part, they have easy to use one-click appliance updates you will love. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. That's kiteworks.com to get started today. And now, the show. Today's episode goes to the heart of anyone who has a small business or knows someone who has a small business or ever shops online or uses social media, which means it's basically applicable to everybody. Coined the original cybercrime godfather by the U.S. Secret Service and formerly number one on the FBI's most wanted list, Brett Johnson sits down with us today to discuss common things that can help small business and us individually, like password management, self-protection, right? Guarding your own privacy. We've got to get to the point where we take accountability for our own privacy, because you cannot expect a vendor, a company, a platform, or an application that you use, or the government to provide you with enough protection when you get online. Remember, when we get online, we enter their world. We're going to discuss election year fraud because this is the year of a major U.S. election. We're going to talk about deepfakes, extortion as a service, and the evolution of ransomware. We're going to talk specifically about best practices for small to mid-sized businesses to stop refund fraud, business email compromise, and how to identify these things up front. This is the story of Brett Johnson and how his advice can help save small businesses today. Come join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top technology leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. From the creators of Vigilance, the newest global technology newsletter translating cyber news into business language we all understand. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our podcast episodes on Apple and Spotify so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. They're going to just boot us out eventually. So, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies, the FBI most wanted cyber criminal, now good guy, former U.S. Secret Service target, and then the U.S. Secret Service actually noted and called this gentleman the original cybercrime godfather. Host of the Brett Johnson Show. I encourage everybody to check it out. Links will be in our show notes, and a new show that he's got called Criminal Thoughts, the Criminal Thoughts podcast, which I believe is part of, we'll get into this, I believe it's part of the Brett Johnson Show. That's outstanding as well. Brett, sir, welcome to the show in the studio.
David, it has been a minute, and thank you for having me back.
You are always welcome, sir. Your insight, your experience, and the way that you can see through the BS of what we are seeing out there is always interesting. And
it's crazy. I mean, it is.
Let's start off where what we were talking about backstage. So what do you think of our new studio? Like, this is our new studio.
I like it.
Pretty nice. Like, look at that.
Yeah,
it's got tall ceilings and stuff.
I like the FBI hat in the back.
Actual, yeah. It's
yeah,
FBI.
I've taught it. Well, I've lectured at Quantico, and I've got the challenge coin, the T-shirts. I've not gotten the hat. I'm jealous right now.
Man,
yeah.
I'll. My wife has a store. I'll have her make you one. Just
there. Well, I'm actually meeting with. I've got a meeting scheduled. I've got a meeting scheduled with some law enforcement individuals, and I'm going to ask them, hey, get me back at Quantico at the CISO Academy so I can get a friggin' hat.
Absolutely. So for those that might not know you, tell us a little bit about you. Let's say we're at a dinner party and we meet, and I'm like, hi, I do investment banking on Wall Street. What do you do? Like, what do you say to that guy? Like, how do you introduce yourself?
Well, it's interesting how I introduce myself. At a conference, typically what I'll do is I'll walk up to someone and I'll say, hi, I'm Brett Johnson, criminal, and extend the hand.
And you just gauge their facial expression.
Just let it drop right there.
Okay.
So that's what I do at a conference. If I'm really talking to someone, and here's what's important. You know this, David. I am not. There's no pride to be had in stealing money from people.
Oh, of course.
All right.
No, but the story and the arc is where the value is.
Yeah. So the Secret Service, as you pointed out, they called me the original Internet Godfather, and the way I got the title was I pled guilty to 39 felonies. I was on the United States Most Wanted list. I had an escape from prison.
Not one felony, not 10.
Right.
You 39.
Right.
You're like, if I want Travis Kelce numbers, I want like Michael Jordan numbers. If I'm going down, I want 39 of them. So
right.
It was a bad day.
It was not a good day. So the actual indictments, there were like 70 felonies that I was indicted for. Yeah, the plea agreement came down to 39, and I happily agreed to plead guilty to those, because if I would have taken it to trial, I would have gotten a lot of prison time.
Exactly. And we would not be doing this podcast. Well, I mean, maybe.
We would not. I
have gone and visited prisons and stuff, but I don't like the food. So.
Right. But, it's, it was interesting. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Matt Cox, over at Inside True Crime. And we were talking about this. It's the story, that life of crime that opens a door for me. But once that door is open, you see, do I have any value in today's world? And it turns out I do. So, I use that story to open a door. And then at that point, I kind of forget about that story, and we talk about today's fraud and cybercrime and the problems in cybersecurity and things like that.
Well, look, everybody makes mistakes in life. We all do. Everybody has done some things, right? Not necessarily to the degree and scale, but when there's greatness and you do things well, right? You're like, okay, I stole a candy bar. Well, okay, that's fine. Don't do that, right? Bad. But when you're really good at something, right? You create shadow crew on the dark web, and you amass a fortune and draw attention and have people underneath you that have been subject of several of my episodes. I'm still wondering where Jerry Cotton was.
Today on LinkedIn, I'm calling out a company called Refend.ai. Three students from Berkeley, brilliant kids. They go off and they invent this this company called Refend that identifies a certain type of refunding fraud that merchants are being hit with. I had a call with them. They hounded me late November, early REFEND. Yeah. So I had a call with them late November, early December of last year. And during that call, I meet the three founders, two of the founders tell me that the reason that their product is so good and that it's so effective is because they used to be refund fraudsters.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I didn't expect the company to go public as quickly as it did. It goes public, 2 weeks ago. And today I posted, hey, these guys are former criminals, maybe even current criminals. The chances of them being indicted are pretty good because the feds are busily rounding up hundreds of refunders this year. So are you going to let that wolf into the henhouse? And to top it off, I've got recordings of them admitting that they were engaged in refunding fraud.
Oh, oh my gosh. So,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, they have no VC funding whatsoever. They're a privately owned company. But the thing is they're already hooked up with, they're in talks with Shopify. They're in talks with Loop Returns, a few other companies as well, because these companies really have a problem. Yeah, these companies really have a problem with refunding fraud. So if you have a product that can identify a certain part of that fraud, it becomes very valuable to those companies. The problem is that you're potentially letting in a group of fraudsters who we don't know if they've actually stopped committing the crime or if they're likely to go back to committing the crime or if they are maybe going to share some of the proprietary information with their former fellow fraudsters on Telegram. So, full disclosure, somebody needs to know that stuff before they make a decision whether to hire this company or not.
Absolutely. So you had a post and you've written about recently some people a lot of people have side gigs, right? A lot of people have Shopify shops. They have craft stores on Etsy. They have eBay shops. It's been going on for decades, right? A lot of people do it. And there's been it seems like a massive influx on like refund fraud, right?
Yeah.
How does you had a recent article that you wrote about somebody that was just getting out of eBay after years of doing it, and how does it work? Like, can you just explain to the listeners how does that? Just generally speaking, how does it work? Somebody buys something, but then they return it, but somehow they're able to still keep the product and then never have to pay for it, right?
So when we're talking about refunding fraud, to give you an idea of how prolific this type of fraud has become, an article came out, I think USA Today put this out 2 days ago, talking about some of the numbers. Last Christmas season, the amount of refunding fraud, $26.7 billion. All right. Of all the returns that were initiated, the estimate is 16% of those were fraudulent returns. So we're talking about a very huge amount of fraud here. Now, the way that's committed, you get someone that orders a product. It can be a laptop, a cell phone, a swimming pool filter, what have you. Once they get it in, depending on the company that they're trying to defraud, they can tell the company that it didn't arrive. Sometimes the company will send out a replacement. Sometimes they'll say, well, the box arrived, but it wasn't in the box. The company will send out a replacement. Or sometimes the most effective reason is you tell the company, that merchant, that you're going to return that product for a refund. That merchant will issue you a return label that you affix to a box and send that product back. What criminals can do, it's called FTID, fake or false tracking identification. They can manipulate the shipping label to make it look like the merchant has received the item back, but they never do. The merchant thinks they have. They give the money back. The criminal gets to keep the product, and they get their money back at the same time. So that's this type of fraud that we're talking about. It actually redefines cybercrime as we know it today. Most criminals today begin with refunding fraud and then immediately start making money, use that to bankroll their education and other forms of fraud.
Right. And then move on to ransomware as a service or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Wow. So, yeah, it's very prevalent. It's prevalent, and this goes beyond the digital realm also, because you see this happening at the Target stores and other things where people are kind of doing this very similar thing, right? They're
right. So think about Target or Walmart resellers, or if you're trying to sell a watch on Chrono24, any platform that allows those third-party sellers. It's very easy for someone, a criminal like I used to be, to go in and defraud those people. I go and I order a watch. Like I've got a Tudor on. So if I wanted another Tudor for free, I would order the Tudor, get it in, and then I would tell the buyer that I'm going to return it. Okay. If the buyer actually lets me return it, I would fake the tracking label to make it look like he gets the watch back. He doesn't. Chrono24 thinks he does, though. They give me my money back. I get to keep the watch as well. If the seller does not let me return the item, how do I take care of that? At that point, I institute a chargeback with my credit card company. Tell them that, hey, that was not as described. It does not work. It was fake. Whatever I need to tell them in order to get me my money back. I get the chargeback approved to me. They put the money back in my account. At that point in time, I will usually close that account down so that they can't claw the money back later on.
Right. And the thing is you might be talking about $50 or $100 in one transaction, but this is done at scale.
At scale. Yeah. I talked to a guy over at a seller on Chrono24. He was about to be defrauded of a $20,000 watch. So, and you're right, it's not all $20,000. A lot of it is $100 to $500. But when you're doing this at scale, you're not hitting just one shipment, you're hitting multiple shipments a week, and you're talking about thousands of criminals on each one of these Telegram channels that are doing it at the same time. It becomes a $26 billion Christmas fraud.
So that's a good segue. So let's talk about the growth and evolution of Telegram. So for listeners that don't use Telegram or may not be familiar with it, could you explain it?
Sure. It is an encrypted messaging platform. You can download it to your phone as an app. You can run it through your web browser. It's encrypted end-to-end. You can send direct messages. You can create your own channels. You can run video on there, audio, anything that you want to run. It's an outstanding platform. It truly is. The problem is that it's owned by a Russian who refuses to answer any law enforcement request whatsoever. So when we're talking about the evolution of Telegram for cyber criminals, there's a reason that the traditional dark web is not as in vogue as it used to be. And that reason is the traditional dark web, the Tor browser, has a lot of friction attached to it. You have to download it. You have to configure it properly, or you're going to be identified. You have to know the exact address you're going to. You have to watch out for criminals trying to phish you as you're going to these addresses, any number of things like that. Telegram's not like that. Tor doesn't have a search function. Telegram has a keyword search function. It's almost friction-free. It's encrypted end-to-end, so it's almost idiot-proof in that respect. So as such, most beginning cyber criminals started to flock that way. Their numbers became so huge that the more experienced cyber criminals that were over on the dark web, and they're still there, they understood that, hey, a lot of the money is to be made on Telegram. So now you've got the more experienced people that are setting up channels on Telegram as well. So you've got hundreds of thousands.
Okay, so are they setting up stores like marketplaces on Telegram? Or is that just be used as the communication channel to the dark web to go find the store?
No. So what's interesting, and this is one of the really interesting things about the differences between Telegram and the traditional dark web. On the traditional dark web, you will have a marketplace. You'll have Incognito. You'll have Archetype. I'm a huge Archetype fan right now. It's like the premier marketplace on the dark web. Telegram doesn't have yet that marketplace type function. So what will happen is you'll have an individual that will create that channel, whatever the fraud channel is, AIO, Darknet Market Forums, whatever that is. He'll create that channel. In the channel will be advertisements of whatever drugs or criminal products and services that he and other people are selling. If you want to buy that, then you have to direct message that seller And then on an encrypted messaging on Telegram, as it's encrypted, you have this conversation with this individual. Yes, I want to buy that 8 ball of cocaine. Okay. At that point, he will tell you that you can pay. And this is the weird thing too. A lot of the cells accepts Cash App. They accept Chime. They accept Bitcoin. Those are traceable. Right. And that's one of the things that you see too about Telegram is the operational security from the criminal point of view is horrible. You get them posting selfies of each other. You get them doxing each other. Any number of things like that. And as such, law enforcement is having a field day identified and
and the bottom line though is they can't, if the people don't self-disclose, they can't garner that. Law enforcement can't garner that information through an investigation by issuing subpoenas or anything to the owners of Telegram because they don't recognize the jurisdiction. They're owned by a Russian, and they're just not going to pay attention to law enforcement requests.
Right. And so what you've got, and this has been a problem with the English-speaking online criminals since, hell, I was committing crime, is they talk way too much.
Yep.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You know, we all have a lot of data, and it has to positively, absolutely stay safe. It can't get into the wrong hands, and the biggest challenge we have is how to transfer it from here to there. We all know as leaders that legacy tools that transfer our important files and sensitive data are mostly outdated and fall short on security, especially with the demands of today's remote workforce. Relying on outdated technology puts our organization's brand at risk, and that is unacceptable. So we're excited to invite you to step into the future of completely secured managed file transfer from our friends at Kiteworks. Kiteworks is absolutely, positively the most secure managed file platform on the market today. They've been FedRAMP moderate authorized by the Department of Defense since 2017. And unlike traditional legacy systems with limited functionality, Kiteworks has unmatched software security with ongoing bounty programs and regular pen testing to minimize vulnerabilities. And the coolest part, they have easy to use one-click appliance updates you will love. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. That's kiteworks.com to get started today. And now the show. Well, it's the Achilles heel of most criminals.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, you say that, when I was in prison, we had a whole crew of people that would go in the TV room, and the only thing that they would watch were the real world crime shows, like The Next 48, where every episode ends with the guy telling on himself. And that was very common. And you talk to most people that are in prison, most law enforcement, I think, would agree with that. Most of the time, these guys, you start to talk to them, they're going to tell you what you want to know. They're going to tell you enough so you can convict them. And that's still the same way it is today. Absolutely.
So let's pivot for a second. I want to ask you about, we talk on our channel about, cybersecurity best practices. When you're just on the clear net, you're just on the regular net, and there's so many companies out there that are asking for cookies, asking for information. They're asking for information that could be used later to answer your security questions. There's so much of this. There's these platforms that essentially want your personal, private information, right? But they don't necessarily need it to do their services. So, what is your take on that?
We've seen. What was that breach we had? The 26 billion from LinkedIn and a few of these other platforms. The issue is
the recent leak of all of that data, and a lot of it was old, but
right, a lot of it was old.
As we've talked about several times on this show, is the risk there is clear, and that is most people, they've got a good password, and they love that password. They're like, I put it in the. How strong is my password? And it's a really strong password. So I'm going to use it on everything. And that's where the problem is.
That is where the problem is. And for a platform, I don't care, maybe LinkedIn can make an argument for that. But TikTok can't make an argument to verify your identity. I don't think Twitter can do that either. There are always these platforms where you don't have to verify your identity in order to be able to successfully use that platform. Yet you've got these platforms that are wanting that information, and there's a reason they're wanting it, because that information is valuable to them. It increases their bottom line at the end of the day. The issue that I think is...
So just to interrupt for 1 second. So what you're talking about is when you're using a platform, a social media platform or another platform, you're talking about, hey, get verified. You see this on all of social media now. And then they're going to ask you specific questions, your home address. They're going to call you or text you by your cell. They're going to do all these things to verify that you are. They're going to ask you to take a picture of your driver's license, front and back, and send it in. And then you have a badge by your name that says, I'm verified, right? I'm actually who I am. The theory behind that is to stop deepfakes, to stop fraudulent impersonation. The problem with that is you are now giving these people some very personal information that they're then going to go and sell.
Yeah, they're going to go and sell it. That's a fact. And another problem with that is, are you sure that the people you are giving your non-changing identity information to are good stewards of that data? Are they going to protect it? Or are they going to be like 23andMe and blame it on you when they get breached?
Don't even get me started with that. Like, that is just... I did a carousel and everything. I was so mad. Like, I still can't believe that. Like, I understand their point about, sure, we should not reuse passwords, but you can't mishandle things and then blame people.
Yeah. But that's what they do. And it's not just 23andMe. 23andMe was very public about blaming the victims.
And I believe the impetus to them having to blame their own customers, speaking of 23andMe, was to defend a large class action suit that's coming up. Right. They have to say something, right?
Right.
They have to say something, otherwise they're going to pay 10 times as much.
So they come out, they say that, they say, the hacker had 14,000 passwords, and he used those 14,000 passwords to compromise the other 6.9 million accounts. Good Lord. And nobody in security at all noticed that something was awry?
Right? Like that. Right. Of course not. And the way that they configured the inside, like through the relative tree that you can do in 23andMe, you're able to take that access and find out all this other information from everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the report today?
Wrong. So that you could do that, they didn't detect that it had happened for 5 months.
Yeah.
While that was going on. That's
Did you see the report today on where that information is being sold now?
I have not, but please enlighten us.
So it turns out that some of the 23andMe information that's being sold is directly marketing those who have a Jewish heritage.
Yes. That is not something.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it? That's fantastic. Yeah, and I'm not surprised by that, because I remember the initial reports that the initial identities and information, the accounts taken, were of specific Jewish heritage. In the beginning, I saw that, but now the data that's being sold is actually of them as well. Not surprising at all. So what do we?
So that's the world we live in.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's really become buyer beware, right? It's really become people have to take their own personal privacy as a fundamental human right. Like, you can still do business with people without having to disclose where your children are going to school, where your ancestors were from, all of these things. There are still platforms and tools and systems that you can buy where you don't have to disclose that information.
Well, and the thing is we have to get to the point where we understand that companies are not going to protect us, that we need to take an active role in our security and our privacy. We have to get there. I mean, if we don't respect it ourselves, how can we expect the government or private companies to do that?
Correct. That's exactly right. Which is one of the reasons why we tell everybody not to accept cookies. Like those can be done, and to take care of, like, be careful of the platforms that you're on, right? Like there are so many platforms, new apps that you download, and people just download it. They accept the T's and C's. They don't read it. Reading those are really important, believe it or not, because so many of them track keystrokes. They track other things that you're going to type in later on when you're not using that app. That app's not on, but it's still recording everything you're typing in, including passwords, including searches, all of that stuff, and they have that data.
Right.
Unbelievable. Well,
so I guess that I've got some apathy.
Always good to catch up with you, my friend. It is always insightful. So before we end on our last topic, which is deepfakes, it is 2024 and we have an election coming up. Given the rise in deepfakes and the ability to lead misinformation and everything else, what is the potential for this coming election to see even more fraud than we have seen in the past? What are your thoughts on that?
So thoughts on that. And here's what's really interesting. The past, actually it's been more than 4 years. We've heard a lot of chatter about election fraud from both sides. I think that if you apply game theory to this year's election, that prisoner's dilemma, that we're going to see both sides engaged in some sort of schemes to manipulate the election. Maybe not, fake ballots and stuff like that, but certainly trying to skew the mindset of the electorate toward their side, that type of manipulation like that, at the very least. We've already seen that with the deep fake of Joe Biden in New Hampshire, calling Democrats saying, hey, don't vote. It'll just embolden the Republicans. So I think we're going to see more of that as the year. Actually, I know we're going to see more. Right. But if you can come through as legitimate and a very low-key type of attack like that sounds reasonable, it's a very effective type of attack. So I think we're going to see more of that. We're going to see some deepfake videos popping out. Who wins the election? I don't know. I think that we're going to see a lot of potential fraud through that. We're going to see a lot of intimidation techniques that are coming in. The last time I know the CISO over at Maricopa County, and he was telling me some of the nightmarish stuff that happened during the last election. And this election is absolutely going to go through the roof.
Oh,
so.
Well, that'll be something that we watch and circle back on, because as that gets closer, that is going to be on the front of everybody's mind, right? I mean, it's going to be so prevalent, because you hear it in the dialogues at restaurants and at conventions. People are like, yeah, but they stand for this, or they're like, if I vote this way, they want to do this. And I'm like, where are you getting that from? They're like, well, I saw it on Facebook. And I'm like, I could have made that on Canva and sent that on Facebook. Easily. It's so crazy. No disrespect to Canva. I love that platform. But the thing is that look at how easy it is to manipulate. I mean, creating an avatar is so easy. I mean, they have these platforms that are remarkable, and some of them have a valid reason. So one thing I would love to do is I'm going to do an AI episode or a deepfake episode, and I'm going to invite you to attend that.
Please.
It'd be wonderful. What we should do is either in the middle of it or in the beginning, start out with you and I talking, but it won't be you and I. It'll be our avatars. It'll look just like us and it'll sound just like us, but won't be us talking. And then bring it over to our friend Paul and let's see what he makes. He already did one of me when I met with him earlier today, and it was me talking, and it was like, hey, I'm going to be on like the Cybercrime Junkies podcast. I don't want anybody to follow or subscribe. I really don't care if you do or don't. And I was like, okay, I like that. Do you mind not saying that part? Like, can we say something funny?
Can you leave that part off?
Sort of joke in there. I can type anything I want, right, man? So I think that would be fun. Because
yeah, let's do that.
The reason why is because the old adage that seeing is believing. When we talk about deepfakes, and we have to admit, in the past, the deepfakes that we've seen have been kind of robotic. Like you can sometimes you can hear it. You're like you're watching YouTube and you hear this person talking, and my wife's like, "That's AI," and I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't even sound real," and, but some of them now, and I mean recently in the last few weeks that I've seen, I can't tell. And that's what scares me, because think about that. Just like you said, it could lead to very impactful business email compromise, can't it? Right? Business email compromise is when somebody in leadership, let's say, reaches out, or somebody in leadership at a vendor reaches out and says, hey, I have to change the wiring instructions on this invoice. We changed banks. Okay. Do you mind? Yeah, we just have to verify. Let's call the owner, right? And okay, I'll have the owner call you right now, right? And the owner calls and gives that authority. Sounds exactly like the owner. They've talked to him 100 times. Right. It's coming from the number. You can spoof the number. That's super easy. And then it goes through. And so here's the person who's followed the current best practices. I called, I verified, right? Like I did what I was supposed to do, but it was still fraud. We still lost that $800,000.
Right.
It's tough. And there's a market, and I know that there's several startups and some companies out there that I've seen that run deepfake detection software.
You're right. There are, but the problem is it's not. But
nobody has a budget.
Even then, it's cat and mouse.
What's our deepfake detection budget this year? No small business has that, right? Nobody has a line item on their budget for deepfake detection software. So that's going to be a problem. Now, what were you?
Oh, it's a huge issue. No, so those companies that recognize the deepfakes, that's more of a cat and mouse game anyway. You've got an attack that comes out. The company doesn't recognize it to begin with. They tweak their algorithms so that they now recognize that form of deepfake. The criminals then tweak theirs so that you don't find the next one. It becomes this chasing the mouse game all of a sudden. That's a lot of the issue. And I really think that there's a possibility with AI that we get to the point where you're not able to identify that deep fake in any normal amount of time at all.
No, and that's where the challenge is. Yeah.
So, I'm doing the interviews. We've got the Brett Johnson show, which is, I'm trying to transition that into how to be a better person. That's what I want to talk about. That's really what I'm interested in is turning the life around, what it takes to be a better person, what it takes to just do the right damn thing, getting stories like that. That's really my interest more than anything. That's why we broke off a lot of the crime stuff into its own show called Criminal Thoughts, which is available on podcast platforms and YouTube as well. Criminal Thoughts, it's about all things crime related and trying to gain some criminal insight, trying to share that with the audience. I am not the guy that... you get a lot of people that do these crime shows and they glamorize the criminal.
Right.
That is not me. It's never going to be me.
More about your show, and I think the most impactful ones, like what you're doing, is about discovering and uncovering the modus operandi. Right?
Right.
What is it that is driving this? What is this really about? in getting down to what
That's
the
it.
truth is. For those listening, we don't make money on these. This is about about professional development, doing the right thing, spreading the word, and raising awareness. That's what this is all about.
Right.
And if we don't, if not for us, who? If not now, when?
Right.
I believe that's Kennedy. So I'm just going to say it was Kennedy. And if not, I'll create a deep fake of Kennedy saying it, and then it will be Kennedy. How's that?
I like it. What's on the agenda for you, man?
A lot of things going, a lot of public speaking, a lot of, we're part of InfoGuard, and we've been driving these public service initiatives where we're training organizations on cybersecurity best practices. We talk about cybercrime by the numbers, and then we do in different verticals, like the healthcare vertical, the legal vertical, finance, education.
Beautiful.
And we're just trying to, because people have no idea. They have no idea. They're they're like, yeah, if a breach happens, we'll call our IT person. Like, no, that's not what happens. Like, you've got to get on a Tox channel. You've got to go negotiate with a Russian cyber criminal who's really good at his job. Are you ready?
And you're going to pay him.
Yeah, and it's about how much. And at the end of the day, our goal is to keep more organizations out of the news, meaning not out of the news if they need to be in the news. I'm not saying hiding bad things. What I'm saying is if we can limit, because there's a difference between a data breach that's like a damaged device or server, and it's a interruption and you can cure it and no harm, no foul. It's just a loss in business loss, right? And there's one where they are inside for months and they destroy your reputation, and you have to notify all your customers, and you have to be in the news, and then you have it's devastating. And these people, it's tied to their families. These people, it's tied to their kids' colleges. It's tied to this is the American dream that is being destroyed. And I come from a family with a dad who had nothing and built up like a trophy and awards company, right? And he passed away long ago. But this, right now, cybercrime is destroying companies just like his. And
I agree.
It's absolutely, that to me is just a crime. That's a cancer in society that we've got to cure. It's just not. There's so many people are employed by small to mid-sized businesses. That's the majority of the country is employed by small and mid-sized businesses, that 500 employee and less. And so if we can help them and educate them and just get them so that we can, you might get breached, but it might just be a virus thing. It might just be something nominal that we can deal with, as opposed to it's going to make you shut your doors. And that's the difference. So that's
that's the thing too, is I don't understand. I don't know where it stops. I really don't. I see.
It's getting worse and worse, and it's the stories are. I mean, some of the Russian cybercrime gangs. They're talking about do we even want to do ransomware anymore? We're a ransomware gang, but do we even want to? Because it's technical. You have to encrypt and you have to do that. Why don't we just go in and steal the data and then blackmail them? It's just extortion as a service, and that to me is way worse, because that's really where the pain is, and it's easier to just cash, smash and grab. So, but it's really interesting, your take, and you have more insight on the refund fraud, and we saw so much of it with the pandemic. I'm going to draw more and more attention to that, because that is affecting small business as well, and it's really, really tough.
You take you talk about small businesses. One of the main targets are cameras. You have very few mom and pop camera stores anymore. And those stores operate typically on a 2% margin. So they get hit with fraud like this. It hurts.
Absolutely. What can businesses do? What in general are there, if they feel they have somebody like this? Is it the FTC they call? Is it the Attorney General in their state? What are small businesses to do, generally?
by all means, report to FTC, Attorney General, federal law enforcement. Make the reports IC3. What I would advise right now, if you're a smaller store like that, one of these mom and pop camera stores, there's no way at all I would use a return center to process any returns. I would have the returns sent directly to me. I would not give instant refunds at all. I would make sure that I receive the product back, that it's in the exact working condition when I sent it out to that buyer. I would pay attention to the types of payment instruments that were used, the types of items that are being purchased. You know, some of these stores, like a music shop or a camera shop or something like that, if you've been running that business for a while and you get a new order in, you know if that order is even looking legitimate to begin with. Is the guy coming in and he's ordering stuff that doesn't match what should be the order, stuff like, you know if things are not right. So it's important to pay attention to who the buyer is, how they're buying that, if they're going to return it, making sure that you get the return in hand, not just that it's been scanned or someone says that you received it, but have you got eyes on the product that's being returned to you? That will mitigate a lot of the types of fraud that we're seeing right now.
It's amazing that it's 2024 and that type of thing is something that small businesses could have faced back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And the solution to that is something they could do back in the 70s. I'm the owner.
Exactly.
I'm the owner. I don't see the product. You say you returned it. I don't have it. Where is it?
That's it.
That's what they would have done in the 70s and 80s, right? And at the end of the day, I'm protected as a business owner. You see that sign on the back of my wall? No returns unless I receive the product back.
That's it. That's
right?
it.
This is my country and that's my constitution. Right? There you go. And a lot of that, but they don't know right now.
They don't know. You're sending. So you take a regular return now. It doesn't go to the merchant. It goes to some return facility. The only thing they're doing is they're scanning the label in, saying, "Hey, yeah, we've got the product."
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Meanwhile, you throw in some fake FBI hat in that product, and you don't even return the right thing.
I still like the hat, man.
No, that's fine. I should send it to you, is what I should do. But
no, I'll get one at Quantico.
Get two. I'll give you the money ahead of time. I'll pay you on Telegram. So,
hey, there you go. Cash app me.
Cash app you. Brad, thank you so much, man. I wish you all the best. We will definitely circle back in the next few weeks, if that's okay. Go do your Pierce Morgan thing.
Sure,
but I'm going to get with Paul, and then let's come back and let's do a deep fake episode.
David, I love it. I love you. I love your show, man. You're great.
Fun, man. That would be great. And plus, I can make myself say a bunch of things I would not say. And then I could just say, that wasn't me.
There you go.
That wasn't me.
Wasn't me. It was Brett. Brett did it.
Right. I love it, man. Thanks so much.
David, take care,
Talk
brother.
to you, buddy. See ya.
Yes, sir. Bye, sir. Bye now.
Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us. Well, things aren't getting any safer online, and we're excited to tell you about our exclusive offer for Aura, which is linked in the show notes below. Hey everyone, this is your host David Morrow, and we often get asked about individual safety and ways to protect loved ones or small business employees when they're online. So we turned to our friends at Cyber Threat Group, a full-service security consultancy located here in the US, and they told us all about Aura. You might have even seen actor Robert Downey Jr. in their television ads. Look, identity theft isn't cheap. The FTC reports that Americans lost $8.8 billion in identity theft and personal fraud this year, and can cost you personally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Aura provides it all. Financial and identity theft protection, a lightning-fast VPN for online privacy, antivirus, a password manager, and even parental controls for safe gaming and spam call protection. So protect your family or your employees when they get online. Give the gift of online safety. Check out the link in our show notes from our friends at Cyber Threat Group today. Aura is a great way to protect yourselves online. Check out Aura today and stay safe online.